Russian economy in panic. The aggressive plan against Ukraine will end very badly for the world. Hi folks, welcome to the Financial Argument. Attack is the secret of defense. Defense is the planning of an attack. Sun Tzu. You may have noticed that I didn't upload a video last week. There's a simple reason for this. Let me elaborate. As I will explain in detail throughout this video, there's an atmosphere of panic today in the Russian money markets that reminds me of the 1998 crisis period. Let me remind you that in August 1998, Russian financial crisis, also known as the Ruble crisis, the ruble was devalued and a moratorium on the repayment of foreign debt was declared by the Russian government. The consequences of the crisis were devastating, with inflation in Russia reaching 84% and many giant banks going bankrupt. Besides this, with Russia's recent massive military movements targeting Ukraine, I had already decided that this video should be about Russia. It appears to me that the main underlying motive for these actions, which are too costly to be simple intimidation or a military exercise, was almost an economic survival struggle for Russia. Russia was somehow obliged to perform these actions, and it seems they stand ready for the continuation. Frankly, I had difficulty preparing my analysis and constantly reconsidered it. First, you must understand that the underlying reason behind all of this is monetary, an order change in the world. Since the beginning of what is known as the Eastern Ukraine crisis in the Donbass region, which began in April 2014, the region has remained in a state of tension. There's been constant military activity, and Russia contains the military resources to launch large-scale operations there at any time. But such a large-scale military movement naturally drives people into fear, and we have to ask the question, why? We know that besides those who would be directly affected by Russia's actions, the world's financial markets are also weighing the cost of a possible war. You can be sure that I will discuss Russia a lot more in the coming period. We must understand what is heading toward us, and what financial and social disasters to expect as a result. To do this, we have to keep an ear to the ground when it comes to Moscow. Considering Putin is one of the best geopolitical chess masters in the world, we must admit that it's very difficult to analyze Russia. We aren't looking at a classic 2D chess game with two seats of power anymore. The chess game is now multidimensional, with more than two power centers. It wouldn't surprise me to see countries being affected by the new dynamic and changing their positions very abruptly in the near future. As this proverbial game of chess plays out, we know that the world is in economic chaos, in a way unprecedented in history. And admittedly, we're going through very, very serious times. And this is just the beginning. Prepare as much as you can and expect to see events happening right before your eyes that you would never have imagined a few years ago. As I said, the smoke that will rise from Ukraine very soon will have very different causes than before, and what unfolds as a result will be very different. Let's rewind the story a little before we talk about the details of the economic impasse that made Russia take an aggressive stance. I thought that no matter who won the last presidential election, the primary target of the United States would be China. That although the methods and discussions would be different depending on the chosen president, somehow China would be given a lesson that has economic consequences. In my previous China videos, I explained why it should be like this over and over again. It should have been. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. We all saw Biden referring to Putin as a killer after he took office. It appears he'll pay the price. He had his finger pointed at Russia when it should be pointing at China. I gather China is happy that it has gained geopolitical space from this situation. It doesn't really matter who sides with China at this time, although it may appear that Biden's attitude would bring China and Russia closer to each other. I think the situation is not so simple. Let's look at this news. According to the Russian newspaper Izvestia, China became the second largest credit distributor in the former Soviet region after Russia. According to World Bank data, the number of loans distributed by China to the former Soviet republics reached a total of $6.6 billion. Russia is still the largest creditor in the region with a total of $9.2 billion. But $8.1 billion of these loans belong to Belarus alone. What we see here is China applying its usual tactics. The situation shows China's imperial ambitions, and it's highly likely this will damage Russia's policies in the region as China economically narrows Russia's playing field. Regardless of the situation with China, Russia has long been aware that a U.S.-led punishment operation is being carried out against it, involving economic and political factors. Statements made by Russian officials, including those remarking that relations with America have reached a point even lower than during the Cold War, show that the match has already been lit, and a fire is well underway. So Russia already knew it was the target. Although it is necessary to discuss all of this in detail, I will briefly explain. Tensions in Donbass and Crimea, allegations of Russian hackers attacking U.S. organizations in 2020, Nord Stream 2, allegations of Russia's interference in U.S. elections, political developments regarding opposition political Alexei Navalny, and more. The list is pretty extensive. Besides these current developments, there are other issues that put Russia at an economic impasse and are causing it to become aggressive enough to potentially start a world war. In fact, it shouldn't be surprising that Russia is seeking to gain an upper hand with the use of military power or its aggressive attitude. Apart from the economic impasse, Russia has achieved everything it has had for centuries through wars. In addition, when the Soviet Union disintegrated, they were able to create a new industrial revolution with the factories they had and bring them up to rival today's global companies. However, their economic goals were different due to the social structure they aimed at. The primary reason why Russia did not prefer an economic model based on competition with giant global companies, although it was possible at the time, is that it wanted a more contained societal structure. Due to the increased standard of living across the population, the society would be more open to free thinking than the Russian government wanted, and would be in violation of the targeted nation-state structure. This would make the Russian social structure, which is difficult to control even today, even more uncontrollable. Let's take a simple look at the Russian economy in the context of fossil fuel exports. Almost 80% of its exports are now natural gas and oil. It buys agricultural and industrial products with the foreign currency it earns. With the whole world moving in the direction of alternative energy sources over the next 20 years, especially in regards to electric vehicles and solar energy, fossil fuels as a mainstay of their economy will come to an end. The Green New Deal and many other trillion-dollar projects are in the process of being implemented not only in the United States, but in all world governments in order to accelerate the process of phasing out fossil fuels. This means that after 20 years, Russia will not be able to find the foreign currency to import agricultural products. Remember, the October Revolution of 1914/1917 was instigated as a result of extreme food shortages that affected the masses. Nowadays, Russia keeps a hold over Europe mainly through its energy exports. When this is taken away, Russia will essentially become like a giant Bulgaria. Modern-day Russia has taken an aggressive stance in relation to these situations, and it's hard to predict what steps they will take next. Russia's expansion since 1945 is something that NATO wants to contain. Despite the political upheavals, Russia is still an oligarch-oriented country that has moved away from communism and socialism, and in a way still embodies the imperialistic mentality of Tsarist Russia, with a leader like Putin who has yet again extended the possibility of his term to 2036. The only force that can really stop Russia is the United States of America, and unfortunately, it is obvious how strong we are today. In addition to Russia's aggressive attitudes, the future of their economy also relies on global warming. Russia seems to be betting on the hope that almost all of their capital will save them, while global warming will make the whole world hell. According to this plan, they want to open up an economic space for themselves thanks to the new trade route created by the melting of the glaciers. With this alternative route, a container ship from Tokyo to Hamburg needs to travel for about 45 days via the Suez Canal, while the same ship has to travel about 35 days via the Northern Sea route. After the Suez Canal incident, they began to discuss the issue even more. I hope some of the puzzle pieces are coming together in your mind. By the way, I'm sure for those of you who've been watching the videos on this channel for the last few months, the Suez Canal incident comes as no surprise. Coming back to our topic, this is all very significant for Russia's Eurasia plans, including the water crisis in Crimea that came about as a result of the tension with Ukraine. It's worth remembering that Zbigniew Brzezinski, former United States National Security Advisor, said, "Ukraine, a new and important space in the Eurasian chessboard, is a geopolitical pivot because its very existence as an independent country helps to transform Russia. Without Ukraine, Russia ceases to be a Eurasian empire." Also, let's not overlook the fact that Putin's latest statements are preparing the Russian people for possible war. We already know that Putin has approved the law extending his term of office up to 2036, but he's also signed other laws that need our attention. One of these was the new penal code, which stated that insulting war veterans would be punishable with a 5-year prison sentence. Biden's statement about Putin, his refusal to come back from the statement, and his refusal to confront him on television or via video conferencing initially irritated Vladimir much more than the Russian people or the pro-Putin Russian people. A few days later, Putin went to the Siberian steppes with Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and sent a clear message by making statements from a military vehicle. I want to also mention that in order to understand Russia and Putin better, it's useful to read the Fourth Political Theory. This is the most significant book written by Alexander Dugin, an important Russian political figure who guides the ideology foundations of today's Russian state and helps shape Putin's views as well. While Biden and Putin openly sent messages to each other, and Russia aggressively made a massive military buildup in Ukraine, the trouble began to give alarm signals again. The ruble hit a 5-month low against the dollar on Wednesday, battered by fears of another escalation of tensions between Moscow and the West. Apart from that, there's far worse news about Russia's economy, but I will need to make a separate video for that. There is much I wish to share with you. However, I wanted to make a short introduction with this video in order to explain the situation with Russia and what's coming on the horizon for all of us. As I said, there's too much to explain, so it will be necessary to make more videos to take a deeper look at the economic and geopolitical situation. We have Germany trapped between the two, Biden wants to revive NATO, you know what that means, and other issues in the region. If you want to share your own analysis, please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe to The Financial Argument. Finally, I don't want to be pessimistic, but things aren't looking pretty, folks. God bless you all.